What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. So the 2025 draft is now in the books. So now it's time for me to grade every single team's draft. When looking at it with this, I obviously value the first round pick and the second round pick a lot more than the depth picks, because those are the guys most likely to turn into NHLers. If you saw what my grades were for the first round, you probably have a rough estimation on how I feel about these teams. Some teams did really kill it in those second and third rounds. And when looking at my overall scouting, I do have like a top 40, and I know most of like the top 100, but once we start getting into the fourth or fifth or sixth round, I maybe don't know some of these guys. So we are focusing on the early picks mainly by those guys, but that's just kind of common sense. Without further ado, let's dive into it. And up first, the Boston Bruins. I think you got to go with an A plus at seventh overall. They needed that high-end potential center. That is clearly what they're getting in James Hagan's, a guy that has the skill to potentially be a true number one center. I wasn't as high, although I wanted him on New York Islanders. I had him number 6 on my big board. Seventh, you get him there. And then you also pick up William Moore at 51st, who had a turbulent season, but coming into the year was viewed as like a potential top 10 pick. He has a lot of tools. Maybe it could work out. Got Liam Pettersson at 61st overall, a Swedish defenseman that was over half a point per game in the Swedish juniors. Actually got some run at the SHL level, as well as Cooper Simpson in the third, highly productive in the high school level, as well as 7 goals in 9 USHL games. Very good draft by the Boston Bruins, and they had to have one. Next up, sticking in the Atlantic Division, the Buffalo Sabres. I'm going to go with a B+. Radim Merca at 9th overall. Solid pick, especially for what they needed, even after getting Mike Kesselring in the JJ Peterka deal. Doesn't hurt to draft such a position of need in right-handed defenseman, especially when he's such a big guy. And they drafted another giant right-handed defenseman with their third-round pick. David Bedkowski is a 6'5" right-handed defenseman, mainly all-defense guy, but not going to get mad at Buffalo, considering we've criticized them so much for their right-handed defense, and they addressed it in this draft. The Dallas Stars did not have a top 90 pick, but at 94th overall, they took Cameron Schmidt, a guy that I had 30 on my big board, and most people had as a late first, early to mid second round pick, given the high-end offensive skill. So the fact that they did not have any high picks and they still walk away with the potential first round talent, that is just special work by Jim Nill. I can't believe that he fell that much. I understood if he went in like the late second, but 94th was absolutely crazy, and the Dallas Stars are probably going to develop him into like Logan Stankoven 2.0. The Seattle Kraken, I'm going to go with an A-. I didn't love the Jake O'Brien pick in the moment at 8th overall because they have so many goddamn centers, but the fact that they got Blake Fiddler at 36th overall eventually makes up for it a decent amount. They get their big right-handed defenseman. I don't think Fiddler has potential to be like a true top pair stud, but he could be a lockdown second pair guy for this team. 6'4", 220 pounds already. Solid draft by Seattle. The Nashville Predators, I'm going with a C+. I did not like the Brady Martin pick. I think he's going to be an NHLer, but I don't see the high-end skill to be something special and worthy of a 5th overall when you had Martone go 6th, you had Hagens go 7th. I just don't like that pick that much, but I did like Cam Reed at 21st. I did really like Riker Lee at 26th. He's a guy that I was decently high on, higher than most. They got Rombach at 35th, as well as Ivan Kovic at 58th. And if Ivan Kovic's going to learn from anybody as an undersized goaltender, UC Soros was a pretty good guy to learn from. I didn't have him in my personal top 40, but he definitely was the top 60 guy for me. So they rebounded after that first pick, but for Nashville, for a team that I'm not sure is going to be so bad next year and have another top 8 pick in the draft, I can't say I like their draft because of the Brady Martin pick. Next up, my New York Islanders, A+. I don't think I'm being biased for saying this. Easy pick at first overall with Matthew Schaefer, then Eklund and Aitchison. Eklund, in my opinion, probably the biggest steal of the draft, point blank, period. Prokhorov at 42nd overall wouldn't have been my personal pick. I probably would have went with Malcolm Spence. Not too happy with who ended up getting Malcolm Spence, but it's still a decent swing. 6'5" Russian winger could potentially be something. Luca Romano at 74th, I think, is really good value. Most people had him around like the 45 to 60 range. Very fast guy. I think he'd be an effective third liner down the line. Politan, the guy that they got 106th, is decently impressive. I think he's from Czechia. Like that pick a decent amount. So A+ for my Islanders. I think this was the draft that they needed to catapult their prospect pool at this point, I think, into a top 10 prospect pool in the NHL. For the LA Kings, I'm going to go with a B. I was quite confused with the Brustevich pick initially, but now that they moved off Spence, also with this, I'm not going to factor in like the actual trades, like Ottawa trading for Spence, although I really like that. Just looking at who they drafted and where. Brustevich at 31st. Yeah, it was a little bit confusing in the moment, but now that they moved off Spence, makes more sense. And they got Rimpinen in the 5th round, the guy from Finland that was so good at World Juniors and played a decent amount in Liga last season. He looks like he's an overager, but he looks like he can be a good goalie prospect going forward. The Colorado Avalanche, they had the 77th overall pick. That was their first pick. They selected Francesco Del Elsie, 77th. I'm going to go with a B minus. He played at the college level last year, had 24 points in 40 games, 20 years old. I don't know. Nothing too special in terms of that. Edmonton, I'm going to go with a B. Tommy Lafreniere at 83rd, a skilled center that had 56 points in 68 games in the WHL. Okay pick there. The New York Rangers, I got to go with an A because they got Malcolm Spence at 43rd overall. I didn't love their other picks. Barnhill at 70th is like an all defense, 6'6" defenseman. And Artem Gonchar wasn't amazing. Half a point per game at the MHL level. Probably not going to be anything. But getting Malcolm Spence is damn good at 43rd. I think I had him 23rd or 24th on my board. Really good pick by the New York Rangers. I can't lie. The Vancouver Canucks, give me a B. They got Coots at 15th overall is obviously their top pick. Solid. I wouldn't have gone Coots personally. I obviously would have went with a guy like Victor Eklund at 15th overall. And then they got Medvedev at 47th, I think is a pretty solid pick. So I think a B is about fair. Good draft by the Vancouver Canucks. Minnesota, B minus. They got the, botch his name, Hultquist, 52nd, and then they got Adam Banak at 104th, so I think that was a pretty solid pick. So I landed on a B minus overall. The Montreal Canadiens, B plus. Zorowski at 34th overall. They traded up the 41st and the 49th overall pick for 34th in like a late 6th or late 7th. If he hits, he could be legit. I understand the perspective of the Montreal Canadiens saying we have so many picks and prospects at this point. We can give up 2 second-round picks to go after a guy, and apparently Philadelphia really wanted him. So the upside is definitely there. They picked Bryce Pickford, who's a decent overager at 81st overall, and they got this Russian guy Radkov at 82nd, that had a 918 in the MHL. Pretty solid draft by Montreal. The Vegas Golden Knights, I'm going to go with an A minus. Jacob Ice-Wozniak at 55th. Might as well take a swing. The kid coming into the season was a top 10 talent. He still put up decent production at the U20 level in Sweden, but definitely needs to refine his game and overall just have a higher compete level. But I would take a swing, especially if I'm the Vegas Golden Knights, on a late second for a guy that previously had that kind of talent. Red Wings, A plus. Carter Bear, arguably the steal of the draft alongside Eklund. And then they got Genborg at 44th overall. I think that was a very good pick. He was viewed as like a top 35 to 50-ish guy. The Ottawa Senators, B plus. You get Logan Hensler, although you did take Yakimchuk the year prior and you did trade for Spence. Still, you're never going to get mad at taking a solid right-handed defenseman in the late first. And they also took Blake Vanek. You want to feel old? Vanek's kid, Thomas Vanek, got drafted in the 3rd round, played at the high school level this season. It was pretty solid. The Winnipeg Jets, Sasha Boymedian is the main pick. I'm going to give him a B plus at 28th overall. He could potentially really turn into something. I can't wait to see as his role continues to expand on Boston University next season with Lander not there. Going to be very interesting. The Tampa Bay Lightning, B plus. Ethan Kazada, solid 6'2" guy that was mocked around that range, maybe even a little bit early. So Tampa doesn't have a lot of picks, but looks like they might have gotten a solid piece there. The Washington Capitals, A plus, man. 27th overall, they get Lakovic, who was my 16th prospect. 37th overall, they get Gastrin, who was my 37th. In terms of pure value, you could argue that they had the best draft in the entire NHL, and I wouldn't push back against you. The Calgary Flames, also at A plus. Reshny at 18th, Potter at 32nd. They got Stocksalis at 54th. That was also a very good pick. They got the Long Island kid later on, after last year having arguably the best draft. This year, another very solid draft, and I think an A plus is very valid for the Calgary Flames. The Columbus Blue Jackets, I'll go with the B minus, mainly just those top 2 picks. Jackson Smith, loved it. Andrei Yanov, I can't exactly say I love it too much. An undersized Russian goalie. He's like 6'1", 6'2". Actually, he's not that undersized, but I'm gonna go with the B. Actually, I'll go with the B for the Columbus Blue Jackets, just because Jackson Smith was such good value at 14th overall. The Carolina Hurricanes. This team pisses me off so much. I got to go with an A. They kept on trading back. They kept on getting second round picks, and they drafted pretty good players. A little bit of a surprise going Frolov 41st overall, but solid. They went with Serrato 49th, an overager that was one of the best players in college hockey last season. Ryabkin at 62nd. Like, if there was a team that could properly develop a Ryabkin and probably get the most out of it, you would have looked at Carolina and the way that they've been developing prospects. And then they get Limitov as well, a guy that I was decently high on. I had him 34th on my board. So great job by the Carolina Hurricanes. I can't go an A+ because they don't have any like bona fide stud kind of guy, but definitely an A kind of draft by the Carolina Hurricanes. For the Toronto Maple Leafs, I'm going to go with the B-. They took the Tinas Luke Klobar guy from Norway, 64th overall. It was like half a point per game in Swedish juniors. Nothing too special. B- seems about fair. The Pittsburgh Penguins, I'm going to go with a D+. Kindle, Zanin, Horcroft, Kettles. Trethaway I actually thought was a pretty solid pick at 73rd, but those first three were just, again, 8 to 12 spots too early in my opinion. I did not like this draft by Kyle Dubas. The St. Louis Blues, go with an A. Carbonneau's really the only guy of note that they selected, and at 19th overall, I was pretty shocked that he was still there, so good on them, even if it wasn't the biggest position of need in terms of another winger, another forward. The Utah Mammoth, B+. Desnoyers really at 4th overall to give them that two-way second-line center going forward. The New Jersey Devils, Conrad Frondurk. I think I'm mispronouncing that. But in the second round, okay pick, solid pick there. The Anaheim Ducks, I'm going to go with an A-. McQueen at 10th overall, one of the highest upsides in this draft. And Nilsson at 45th. That's a guy that some people are very high on and even have like top 35. So to get him at 45th overall, solid job by them. The San Jose Sharks, A. Misa, 2nd overall. Ravensburgen, 30th overall. Wang, 33rd. McKinney, 53rd, I think is a very underrated pick. He didn't make my top 40, but he would have been somewhere between 41 through 45. He's very good. You get Misa, the second best player in this draft. Ravensburgen was a little bit confusing for me, but the fact that they got Wang, the 6'6" Chinese defenseman that could be special. Another very good draft by Mike Greer. Shocker there. The Philadelphia Flyers, I am going to go with a B+. I think that they bounced back. I know that they were on my losers yesterday in the video because I hated the Nesbitt trade up so much, but they got Martone at 6th. Nesbitt at 12th. We won't really talk about that one too much. They got a Miko at 38th. Like that. Murtaugh at 40th. Murtag. Is Murtaugh or Murtag? I think I've been pronouncing it because on the broadcast they said Murtag. 40th. He was like 26th on my board. I really, really like him as a forward prospect. They also got Van Shaggy at 48th overall. That guy is an absolute wrecking ball and will be a beast in Philadelphia. Guard 57th. Another 6'5" center that I think in that range I like a lot. And then Max Westergaard, who plays in Sweden, who played in the playoffs at the SHL level and had 50 points in 42 games in Swedish juniors. That is another damn good pick by the Philadelphia Flyers. So although I think that they had the biggest reach of the night, I think that they did rebound a decent amount and overall have a pretty solid draft. Florida Panthers, I'm going to be honest, I'm not familiar with like any of the people that they selected because they did not have a pick within the top 3 rounds. So give them a B- or something like that. And to finish it off, the Chicago Blackhawks, I'm going with an A. They were in my winners yesterday. Most of their work was done in the first round. I don't even think that they had a second round pick. They ended up taking Nathan Bem today, which is a solid over a point per game guy in the CHL this season. But Frondell 3rd, fills a big need for them in terms of their future second line center, physical beast. Nestrasil, I'm very high on him. Mason West, also very high on him. As we've talked about before, 2 guys that could be their ideal power forward wingers going forward to fit in well with their more so skill and speed guys. I think Chicago had a really good draft, and I'm giving them an A. Let me know in the comments. That was kind of rapid fire. I'm not going to lie, but I was basically repeating a lot that I said last night when I broke it down. Let me know in the comments. What do you think about these draft grades? We're on to free agency now. We have like 3 days until free agency. Woo! Turnaround is quick. Let me know what you think of these draft grades. I'll be seeing the next one. Peace.